One of the most like poignant moments for me was when a woman reached out to me and said, I played your album, the entire album, during my mom's transition when she was dying. And it
Oh,
helped her to just let go and to move on and to leave. And I was like, that's the biggest honoring that I think I could ever have.
welcome to Inspired Artist Podcast with me, Porter Singer. In this episode, I am speaking with Rachel McGarry, who is a Canadian devotional chant artist and a certified yoga teacher, also the owner of Sanctuary.is, based in London, Ontario. Her debut album was Songs for Savasana, and she is about to release her second album entitled She Rises, which is honoring the divine feminine within each of us, the many faces of the goddess and of Mother Earth. So we're going to talk about many topics, but specifically chant and mantras and their effect. And yeah, let's get into it. Here we go. All right. Well, hello, Rachel.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. Where are you actually in the world?
I'm in London, Ontario, Canada.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
What's that like right now? Is that like
It,
springing or is it an eternal winter? What?
no, it is here, but no, we've got, 28-degree weather today.
Oh,
It's
nice.
sunny summer here now. Yeah. Yeah. We'll have beautiful weather for the next few months and then we go into a lot of winter.
Do you have like the snows where like it creates walls that you can't see over or
No,
no? Okay.
I moved from Toronto to here a few years ago, and everyone said, "You're moving into the snow belt. You're not gonna survive after Toronto winters." And it's like I brought the mild winters, I think, because now it's like we don't get that. I haven't had that since I've been here, but up in northern Ontario for sure, there's the walls of snow that you have to kind of navigate around, which is kind of neat. It feels like a maze of snow.
Yeah. When they shovel it, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to live in Rhode Island, so I remember that, but we get kind of a disappointing amount of snow here in Seattle. It's
Okay.
like, yeah, we're always rooting for more, but yeah, that's not a popular opinion, but that's kind of where I'm on.
It's mostly rainy though, right?
It is, but in a funny way, like it doesn't pour. It's just kind of a light drizzle, not all the time, but sometimes. Yeah.
Mm,
Florida gets more rain.
okay.
So you've just released a beautiful new single with Brenda McMorrow
Oh
called The
my,
Path to Freedom. Do you want to chat about that?
oh my gosh,
It
yes.
starts with some like invitations to release and to, yeah, I would love to know where that came
Yeah.
from.
Yeah, well, it was written during that time where the world shut down. And a lot of feelings around, a lot of agitation, a lot of grief, a lot of anger, resentment, all of this stuff coming up. And like, how do I deal with these kind of feelings as they arise? And um, it surfaced during that time around, okay, I had to really lean into my yoga practice. I'm a yoga teacher as well as a Bhakti artist. And I leaned hard on my practice to get me through those times. And it was the breath, coming back to the breath over and over again as a tool for transformation, as a tool to move through all of the difficult feelings, that we can feel at any time, as part of the human experience. But it was that inspired this call. Like I've always been drawn to the goddess. And for me, like this is from a new album called She Rises, and it's coming out soon. And it all of the songs are in honor of the goddess, and in this one it was like, who walks with me through those dark times, who walks with me through the shadow, who is the one that can hold me in that time? And that's Kali. That is like the dark mother who can walk with us during those times where we're feeling like it's all too much, and we want to change, we want to transform things, we want to shift, um but we need that bolstering of protection and support. And so I called to her. So this song is a calling um, to surrender all of that through the breath, knowing that we're held and we're supported by the divine feminine. But it's that call to open ourselves and let it go.
Mm.
And it's that breath that can soothe us, that can calm us. So the first half of the song is really, like you say, that call to all of the things, like experiencing all of the things and sitting with all of the things and breathing through them. And then the last half of the song is that big switch up where it's like this really long inhale and exhale breath practice, actually, with the music. I'm inviting people to come and join in the breath with me.
Mm. Yeah, that's a really interesting way to conceive of a song.
Mm.
Maybe you didn't think of it that way, but it
I
did you?
no. It was done. And then I was like, the breath feels really great at the end, because it was like breathe, breathe, breathe. Like, and then there'd be like these little runs in between. And I'm like, that's the inhale and that's the exhale. And I started timing it and I realized it's 8 breaths per second, 8 breaths per minute. And I'm like,
Mm.
that is like the magic number of breaths, right? And so it kind of came organically, well, or inspired. And it just works in that way as a breath practice. I didn't sit down and say, I'm going to write a song that's going to inspire people to breathe. Like,
Yeah.
it just turned out that way. Yeah.
Yeah. But to have like a piece of music that, maybe this is the wrong word, but that kind of tricks the listener into joining a breath practice, is actually kind of revolutionary. I've never heard of that before, because usually it's like, all right, everyone, you're going to sit down and close your eyes. It's not a song.
Right,
Yeah.
right. I never thought of it that way. Thanks. Not really true. I call it an invitation, but it could be tricking, right? You're listening to it, all of a sudden you realize you're like,
Well, not in a bad way, sort of like in a sneaking kale into your kid's smoothie kind of way, I guess.
I love it. Yeah. I'll talk about it like that, like sneaking kale into your kids.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So
It's
when
an
does oh, go ahead.
No, that's just an exciting piece of work that I'm enjoying and that I'm in right now, the energy of that right now. So it's a very exciting moment.
Yeah.
Mhm.
When
Yeah.
does the full album come out?
July 24th.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So are you releasing another single before that? Or
That's the plan. I had planned to release one, and then this one said to me, like the song being of this song said, because the first single was As You Do, which is this calling to the Divine Mother, like teach me to love me as you do. Like it's this
oh, that's
soft.
the one you sent me, yeah?
The
Yeah, that was
first.
beautiful. Yeah, that was really beautiful.
And then from there, this song was like, I was listening in editing mode, and this song said, how come I'm not getting the same treatment as that song? And I was like, okay, so you're going to be released as a single. So it's like the song beings are telling me what they want. And so that was going to be it. And then there was going to be the album release, but there's one more that's coming that will be released, and it's a lullaby. And it's so
Okay.
soft and so sweet. It's called Little One. Mhm.
Oh, that's really sweet that you mentioned that, because I was just so before the episode before this one is going to be the one with Ashana, and she talks about how we can have a relationship with everything, like with the pen, with with the song. I think the first person I ever heard of have talk about a song as if it was a being was Tori Amos. I remember her talking about like, well, this one just didn't want to be on any of the records. I remember her saying that on one of the like the B-side albums that I have of hers. It's a very sweet way to think of your creations
Mhm.
as, beings. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Entities with their own kind of life, and it's just, I'm in service of them when I approach it in that way. It's right, like this song, I don't say that, oh, I sat down and I wrote this. I didn't. I sat down and I just made myself an open channel to whatever came, right? And because I caught it, it's like, okay, I'll keep working with this. But yeah, it's showing up in this really soft, loose kind of way and allowing it to come. And so then it's like honoring that the spirit that came, and it's like, okay, so what do you need next? And in the first month that the first single was released, it'd be every day that kind of like, okay, what do you need? What do you need? What support do you need to fly? What do you need to grow? Like, what do you need today? Like, sometimes it was just like a little bit of love, and sometimes it was call this person and send me to them. And it's like, okay. So it's a
I
really.
love this perspective. That's really beautiful. Have you always felt that way about your songs?
um I don't know that I did with the first album. That was like 4 years, almost 4 years ago now. And I think it's been something that has grown with the creation of this one. Like I've always felt connected to the songs, but I didn't actually speak to them and wait for them to listen. I
Mm,
would just decide what was best and I would move on.
mm,
But now it's like just pausing and like waiting to be told. And with this album, I really approached it very differently because it's in honor of the divine feminine. She rises. I wanted every aspect of the creation of it, the release of it, the marketing of it, everything to be done in the most feminine way possible, which
mm,
means I'm not pushing and striving and like to do is check, 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 check. It's more like opening, meditating. Okay, what do you need? Okay, what's
mm,
needed today? Guide me, tell me, show me. And it's been delayed many times because this process takes longer than a checklist, right? But I feel like it's more congruent with what the album is about, and in that I'm consciously honoring the aspect of the receptive feminine by waiting to be told, um,
mm.
instead of pushing and striving, which is more my. And of course, there are some. Of course, I have some task lists that need to be done, like get your banner up before the single comes out. All those kind of things, right? But for me, it's this conscious decision to try as much as I can to sink into that and just trust the feminine is going to lead, that, she's walking with me through this.
Mm.
Mhm.
Yeah. Man, I'm having like a deep epiphany right now. It's really, I've never considered, and I'm wondering whether the journey that I'm on right now is sort of guiding me to this understanding too, that made me open to what you just said, because I've been trying a new thing out in my songwriting where I'm having people send me information about them, and then I'm literally like waiting to see what comes, and I'll write a song. I mean, I will, a way of telling their story in a healing way, like, like writing something uplifting for them, um, comes, and I write it and then I share it. And so it's still, it came through me, but it's like in honor of them, which is a very different approach for me. So that idea of like having a relationship to the song had honestly never occurred to me. Thank you so much for that.
Oh,
That's really beautiful.
thanks.
Yeah.
Well, I'm
Wow.
glad. I'm glad it's something to think about.
Yeah, it really is. I hope that it sort of, I feel like that could be an approach that people could take about anything that they create, honestly.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like that in life. It's like, okay, it's an experiment here, and let's expand it and let's see, right? And I think even with my business, it's waiting. Like my business is a being. Like I talked to, my business is called
Mm,
Sanctuary, and it's just like that's my being. It has its own entity, and I, need to tap in every once in a while and be like, okay, what do you need?
that's
You
funny. In our language, we actually talk about the business entity,
Mm,
right?
yeah,
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 really
we do.
interesting.
Even people who don't, think of it as an actual being will say
Yeah.
entity. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. That's a funny sort of light side of the shadow when you consider like the how the corporation has become a being. And I don't know if it's the same thing in Canada, but in the United States, it's treated as if it is a human, and in some parts of the law, as I understand it,
Mhm.
and which can have some pretty dark kind of outcomes. But from that perspective, it's like, wow,
Mm.
that that's really, yeah,
Yeah, I
really
think it's all
interesting.
the lens that we put on things, right? So if we're looking at it as like my business is a force for good in the world. Like
Mm,
I'm here to serve. I'm also a yoga teacher, and so that and I combine a lot of my music and my yoga offerings, and so that's kind of my signature of what I do and contribute to the world. And it's all in that lens of being of service, right? And so I think that, spiritual entrepreneurship is a thing, and there's a whole bunch of us that are just, leading or following, just, just behind the first people that had really stepped in and said, no, this is a beautiful business and a beautiful offering and a beautiful way to earn a living
mm,
serving others in this way,
mm,
just because it hasn't been done before doesn't mean that it's not possible.
mm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, how did you connect with Brenda McMorrow? Have you known her for a long time?
Man, and we didn't mention, but or maybe we did, but she is singing on this
Yeah.
first single on the Path to Freedom. She's a beautiful featured artist on it. And we met, probably 10 years ago now, but I yeah, met through a friend who said, you need to do this Bhakti Heartfire Kirtan Academy. And I was like, which Brenda leads. And I was like, okay. So, because I love mantra music, and I was just starting to really dive deep into it. And I've always been singing my entire life. So I was like, oh, so I go and I learn how to, chant and learn, different chants and learn how to lead kirtan. And I was like, okay. And so I went, and it was the most life-altering experience I've ever had in terms of my spirituality, in terms of this opening 6 days of chanting, like pretty much like we were there 7 in the morning till 9 at night, like every day, like full on, um, like does something to you, right? So it was a beautiful, just heart-opening experience for me. And so um I kept going back every year as an assistant for her, helping her and supporting her. And she's been a mentor to me ever since. And so in the last year with this album, we got into a more formal mentorship with her and I. So she's been guiding me through the making of this, and the marketing aspect of it. And yeah, has been really, really a beautiful source of support and love through this whole process. So I feel really blessed to have her, yeah, in my corner and on my team and in my world for sure.
Is
Mhm.
that something that she does for other people, or is that kind of just a special connection that you have with her?
No, she does offer some mentorship support for others. I know that she's worked with another artist, and sometimes people come to her for short things, not necessarily like she's been with me for over a year in this process for the album, because it's taken a long time. But yeah, she does do mentoring, and it could be short term or long term. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Yeah,
interesting. I didn't know that that was part of her
I don't
thing.
know. I don't know this year she's going to be able to. I don't know if you've seen her schedule this summer, but
No.
she's all over the world, and
Oh,
like,
oh, I have. Yes, I have actually. Yeah.
yeah. So she's not. Yeah. So I don't know if she's taking on any new mentees.
Right.
Uh, but she certainly was a mentor to many of us who were in her programs. There's other people like me that have been with her and gone on to write their own music and release
Mm,
music in the world because of their start with her
mm.
program, her Kirtan Academy. So it's been lovely to see other Bhakti Heartfire grads, out in the world, do like continuing this love that we have for Bhakti, for chanting.
I'm so curious when you mentioned the like 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. chanting schedule. Is this like a monotone, like one mantra a day, like japa mala, or is it like more
Oh,
sing-songy? Like what does that look like?
yeah, the hours might be a little exaggerated because we do an asana practice in the morning. So we get in, we do a meditation asana practice, and then we'll probably from, I don't know, 10 to 6, and then we have a break for dinner, and then we'll come back for a nighttime thing. So it changed year by year, depending on, whether we're in and out of COVID, online, offline, wherever we were. Um, but we would learn, this was beautiful. It wasn't just, one mantra. We learned many mantras, but we also learned about the different deities and who we were chanting to and why, and what they represented in their stories and the mythology. We learned about the history of Bhakti. We learned, like, we divided into bands and started writing songs together and then presenting them, and like it was a lot of singing, but also a lot of
Mm.
study and a lot of meditation too. Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
neat.
Yeah, it's a beautiful, the way that she structured the course is beautiful. And she's an educator in terms of her background. And
Yeah, I
so
remember that.
it was a very, yeah, just well facilitated, well planned, well structured program. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think
Yeah.
that you'll ever do something like that?
I offer a personal mantra practice for beginners course, which I have done in person and online. I'm wanting to, my next step with that is I want to offer it for yoga teachers,
Mm.
because I think that there's definite interest and alignment. And so yeah, so I think that's the next place I'm going to be looking to offer it. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
It's funny, I came from like, Kundalini, whatever, and none of the teachers would play anything but mantra music. I mean, it was in class, and I'm going to, and I'm pretty sure the first studio that I went to, no, they played some, no, yeah, they didn't play very much mantra music anyway, but I go to a vinyasa studio now. I don't know if they'd call themselves that, but it's a studio, they do hatha yoga. Um, and they play nothing but pop music, like, and,
Yeah.
and it's so weird. It's really, I wouldn't say it bothers me at all, but I'm like, oh, wow, they don't, like this part of the practice isn't even in their consciousness, it seems like,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And then when somebody does play mantra, and it's happened twice, I'll go up to them and be like, oh, do you like Sonatum, or, whatever they played? And they'll be like, who? So it's just sort of an accident.
Right. It was a playlist shuffle. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I love to see the real consciousness around yoga classes. I'm teaching at a studio here now that's called and asana. So it's all the aspects of yoga and asana.
Mm-hmm.
So it's growing to be a beautiful, of course they have hot yoga and they do all the things, but they have a beautiful meditation studio that they've built there, and starting to bring in a little bit more of the more fullness of yoga. And I lead Kirtan there. And so yeah, it's a beautiful thing to see happening, because there's a lot of people that come, like their first introduction is for fitness, right? And many people
Yeah.
there, that it's still that, yeah, pop music, let's work out and do stretching, right?
Yeah. I had a teacher used to call it stretching in Sanskrit.
Okay. But
Yeah.
so it's nice to see that more and more people are embracing like a bigger, I don't know, viewpoint or perspective of what yoga really is.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a
Yeah.
spiritual practice, everybody.
And you did an entire album dedicated to Shavasana.
Yeah, I did.
I want to say Savasana because I've heard people say that too, but it just feels weird. I don't,
Shavasana. I say
do you say
Shavasana.
Yeah, I don't know. And I know there's no H there, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of debate about the sh versus sounds, I know, but yeah, you did an entire album dedicated to Shavasana,
Yeah.
which is another thing that is actually kind of missing in the yoga practice that I do now. It's like a 3 to 5 minute thing, if it even exists at all, you know. Um, it's such an important part. I mean, why did you decide to dedicate an entire album to it? I'm curious.
I am a restorative yoga teacher at heart. I believe that rest is medicine. So for me, these are all like I lullaby my students with my voice. Like I mentioned, I sing. This is part of what I do, is I sing to my students. So usually, we'll do some sort of breath and grounding and a little bit of gentle warm up in the body. And then it's like sinking into these restorative poses that we hold for 5 to 10 minutes, where they can actually rest, because so many people come in spinning, right? Or their bodies are so rigid and tight. So it's like this healing is so important. I think that's what we need. We don't need CrossFit classes. We don't need these really hard. I mean, maybe some people need that, but I think in order for us to soften and allow and relax, we need to stop. We need to undo. We need to rest. And I really believe that rest is the medicine for our times. This is what we need. And so that's my whole business is focused on that. And this album was all of the songs that I would be writing and singing to my students, all of these lullabies that would be while they were resting in these poses. I'd be singing these songs. So it turned into the songs for Shavasana, because I really believe obviously in the value of it, of rest as medicine. And I thought, well, these songs support that. They're in service of that. Yeah. And I know I've gone to yoga classes, and in Shavasana, sometimes they play one of my songs from my album, and I'm like, do you know I'm in the room? Like, it was like, it's so great.
Not lovely.
Yeah, it's great.
Aw, yeah. That's a nice feeling. The feeling of creating music that becomes useful is really
Yeah.
wonderful. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, music is healing. It has such potential to heal and to touch us on such deep levels. I've had Songs for Shavasana, the album, one of the most like poignant moments for me was when a woman reached out to me and said, I'm getting goosebumps. She said, I played your album, the entire album, during my mom's transition when she was dying, and it
Oh.
helped her to just let go and to move on and to leave. And I was like, that's the biggest honoring that I think I could ever have, that it would be so important and so useful and used in such a spiritual and beautiful way. Like, yeah,
Hmm.
what more what more can I ask for, right? Like, yeah. Yeah.
Hmm. I wonder if that ability to rest is just as you're talking about death. I'm just thinking, I mean, that is called corpse pose.
True.
We're ceasing movement, maybe thought, because the practice has, you know, tuned us in a little bit more. And I wonder if it helps us understand, like, that we, that definitely that we are more than the things that we accomplish, but that maybe it gives us like a broader view of death in a way, that final relaxation. I don't know, I'd never thought about that before. It's a
Right.
working hypothesis.
Yeah. Well, I think about the feeling of like when you can really surrender and let go and you're kind of weightless and timeless, and you if you can get into that meditative state, like what is that? Would that be what
Mm,
death is like? Like
mm,
when you're here but not here, really?
mm,
I don't know, maybe.
mm, mm.
Huh.
Or you feel more connected to just like the energy that is, and maybe the divide between death and life doesn't feel as
Ooh, yeah.
like a making a line symbol with my hand here in case you're listening to the audio. Yeah. Oh, yeah, interesting. Yeah, it's an interesting part of the practice because to my knowledge it doesn't exist. Does it exist in any others that you can think of? Like, I don't think they take a shavasana in martial arts, or um,
I
I
don't
don't
know.
know. I don't know anything about martial arts. If you were listening and you know, please comment, because that would be interesting to me. But to my knowledge, I've never heard of a shavasana in any other practice, like an integration part of it.
Yeah, I don't know, but I do think I agree with you that it is one of the most important aspects of a yoga class, is that that integration, that end, that yeah, that connection and that rest after
Yeah,
yeah, because
yeah.
once we get it all gone, well, that's the whole purpose for us to do the moving part, is for the resting, it's for the meditation
Right,
part, right?
right,
So
right. Yeah,
mm,
yeah. It's kind of a lost opportunity. Um,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. There
Mm.
is something to be, I mean, for me, I really did miss the movement part of it. I stopped doing yoga for a little while, and I was like, wow, I really need to start moving my body again. um, but, but yeah, that rest factor I was talking to, I was on another podcast the other day, and I was saying, in getting this information from people to write songs for them,
Mhm.
the message I get, which I don't include in the song necessarily, because it's just sort of like a, you know, like a message. And I'm like, okay, well, it doesn't really belong in the song, but it's like, you need to rest. That's the message I keep getting. You need to rest. You need to rest. You
Wow.
need to rest. Yeah, it's probably for me too. Um, if I'm
Yeah.
getting it.
Well, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's just rest has been undervalued. Like productivity's been valued, accomplishments and success is never measured by, I had a nap today. Woo, I'm a huge success, right? But what would life be like if it was, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, you know what I did today? I took such good care of myself. I
Yeah.
rested. I went to yoga. I did some work, but I ate really well and I love the kids and oh, our measure of success could be so different than the metrics right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really a lovely world to think about. I think
Mhm.
it's Bhutan. I was watching this documentary on happiness. I think it's Bhutan that has like a happiness quotient.
Oh,
You
neat.
know, like we have like a GOP measure. Is it G? No. It's not
GDP.
GDP, thank you. We have like a GDP measurement and all these things, but we don't quantify or qualify happiness. I think that's
Yeah.
wow, interesting. I wonder how they measure it too. That's
Hmm.
an interesting uh, question I could look up, I guess. But yeah, I
Yeah.
just thought what a beautiful thing for a government to intend.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there are metrics around like satisfaction, like in living in certain places, like the
Oh,
who are living there. I don't know how they measure or what the questions are that they ask them, but that's how they rank like the best places to live in the world. It's also by, people's happiness, like the citizens'
mm,
happiness of living there. So I don't know how they measure that, but it's interesting that, yeah, people are
yeah,
looking at that.
yeah.
Hmm.
Do you travel a lot for what you do, or do you do mostly stuff online and recording and like
I
what's your jam?
I yeah, see that I'm an introvert. So for me, um the big festival things are not easy, not
Mm,
comfortable, not as comfortable for me. I actually, my ideal world would be small groups, small communities that I sing with and build and work with. I do some work online. I'd like to start to do a little bit more in terms of, you know, seeing more, but I would love it if my life were like every day I just got up, wrote music and recorded music and never toured. I'd be okay with that,
yeah,
actually.
yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, I'd really,
That's how I've always felt about
yeah.
about music, which is funny. I've never heard anybody else express that, but um, is travel itself difficult for you, or
Oh, I love to travel.
yeah?
Yeah, I love meeting new people. I love being like within the context of an introvert. But yeah, no, I love to. It's yeah, and maybe it's a growth thing for me, and maybe things are shifting and changing. But for a long time, it was like, oh, I very much like, I was singing with one other woman, Karen Austin. From we had a band called Mahadevi, and we'd lead kirtan together, and it was just lovely. And for a few years, we did that, and that was beautiful, and that was enough. Just being in local studios and called for events and stuff to play, but. Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. I don't know. I'm open, and who knows what the world is going to Justin, who knows what mama's going to put in front of me. The goddess is always with me, telling, like saying, okay, now you're ready for this because this is opening for you. So step through this.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you've done or are you still doing things locally?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, live. Okay,
Yeah,
so
regular events and stuff. And I'm expanding. I do a 2 hour like restorative bliss event, which is the restorative yoga with live music. And so that's expanding and growing to different studios across Southern Ontario. So I'm starting to expand that a little bit more. And yeah, yeah,
what's the title of that?
restorative bliss.
Oh, that's lovely.
It's
Restorative
exactly what it is. Yeah.
bliss.
I'm in all wound up and I will love you for 2 hours. My voice, sound healing instruments and, touch and some beautiful restorative yoga and go out completely changed.
Yeah.
I love it.
Do you know who Johanna Beekman is?
No.
She's an artist I've sung with a few times and I've had her on the podcast, but what you're describing reminds me kind of what she does. She has this yoga she calls lullaby yoga.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to imagine what your class looks like, but I've been to hers, and what she does is she just sort of like walks through and just sings. She goes, she'll do a little bit of guitar in the front. Are
Yeah.
are you are you kind of like wafting through people, or are you like in the front sort of, I don't know. Are you traveling? Like what does that look like?
Yeah, I do both. I'll play guitar up front and sing, or like a shruti or whatever, and that. But I will walk through sometimes with a drum and sing, or with like I have chimes and stuff that I play over people. So I will do the sound healing work, like
Mm,
yeah, weaving amongst all the students. Yeah,
that's
yeah.
really cool. Yeah.
It feels like such an honor to do it. I just love it.
So besides your release that's coming out in July, what else do you have cooking?
Oh, that has been really all encompassing for the last year, is that and teaching a lot locally, like the teaching a lot of restorative yoga, restorative bliss, leading local kirtans. Yeah, that's mainly what I'm up to right now. And my next step, as I mentioned earlier, was like my bringing my personal mantra practice for beginners course to yoga teachers, and I'll probably do it online.
Mm.
Yeah, because I can do a continuing education credits for it for yoga
Oh,
line.
okay.
So I think I'm gonna go, since that's the next big project, but I have to finish the album first. As you well know, it takes quite a lot when you're one person, right?
Yeah. That sounds like a really nice offering for pretty much anyone who teaches yoga. Yeah. It's
Mm.
not even, do you have to be like able to sing, or like what do you
No,
have criteria for who can join, or?
anyone can join, because I think that all voices are welcome in kirtan, like in bhakti and chanting, and even if you never use it for your in front of your classes, it can be a really beautiful practice, even if you just saying om at the end of class, or even
Mm,
if you wanted to bring a japa style mantra in and not even sing and just speak the words with
mm,
students,
mm.
just learning a little bit more about the power of mantra and what it can do for us, and as another tool for us of support. um, yeah, yeah, through life, really.
When you do this class for the personal mantra, are you giving like a different mantra to different people? What does
No,
the class look like?
not that kind, like not like TM or anything. It's
Oh, is that what they do in TM? I don't know.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
everyone has a personal, yeah, personal mantra. I would no, it would be more well, the way I had it set up in the past was I would have, 7-week program, and every week we would be focusing on a different deity and different mantras associated to learning the mythology and learning um the qualities. For example, if we'll start with Ganesha, right? And so we will talk about ease and humility and grace and wisdom and the remover of obstacles, so moving through challenges or moving around, and what some of the mythology around him, and the um qualities that we can embody when we call on his energy, when we call on that power and that energy. So every week would be a different deity, and then like the goal is like kind of by the end you find which one that you resonate with, and then embrace like a 40-day practice or a
Mm.
longer term kind of commitment to really sink into getting to know that mantra and feeling on a longer term on your own the power of it for you. Yeah.
I'm curious about like a few questions. I'm curious about the 40-day thing though that you just mentioned, because that's a really big thing in the Kundalini yoga practice. What's the relationship for you with the 40 days?
It is just a practice around just diving deep into a mantra. 40 days seems to be common as well. You know, um in bhakti, in the world that I've been, learning about and studying. So 40 days, that I've done many 40-day, and sometimes it's like, okay, another 40, let's go. And I've had some mantras that have been with me for years, that have been a daily practice for years. um and then there's a point where it's just like, okay, I think it's time now to let this go, and then something else will come in, and just whatever energy that I'm needing in my life at the moment to support and to connect with. For a few years it was Ganesha in the morning and Lakshmi at night. Ganesha in the morning and Lakshmi at night. It's like clearing the way, welcoming abundance, clearing the way. But
What
yeah.
does that look like when you take on a personal practice? Because I'm just thinking the only relationship I've had to this is from the Kundalini yoga perspective, and it was a timed thing. So you would say do 11 minutes of it, or 22 minutes of it, or 30 minutes of it, or 120 minutes, whatever it would be, but you would time yourself and then it would end. Is that what it looks like, or does it look
No, it's a
a little
little
bit
bit
less structured?
Well, no, it's structured, but not by time. Like I would just
Okay.
have like one round of mala, so 108 repetitions, and when the mala's done, it's done. So I would
Okay.
do like a mala in the morning and a mala at night. Um, yeah, and it's committing to whatever that is, because some people might say, "Oh, I don't have the time to do that. I'll do half or a quarter or whatever. Do
Okay.
26, 54, or 108 times."
So
And
it's saying it.
saying it could be saying it, or it could be singing it. Yeah, it could
Okay.
be. Mhm.
Oh, interesting.
Or it could be silent, because it said that like singing it out is the biggest version, and then speaking it is bringing it closer to the heart, and then just when you're really connected with it, you can just say it internally,
Mm-hmm.
just hold it silently, and that's like the closest experience of connection with
Mm-hmm.
them, right? Yeah.
It reminds me when I was having some internal struggles with the tenets of Sikhism as they were sort of laid out. That was also the idea, was that you would always be chanting the name in your head, and there was such a vehement um, uh, belief that you should be covering your head when you chant, and the two things seem to be a little bit dissonant for me, because if you were constantly chanting it but you couldn't constantly be covering your head. I mean, you would be showering sometimes or you would be sleeping in bed. What about, it was like, what about those times? Anyway, um,
Why is that the covering recommended?
I honestly, at this point, I believe that it's uh, a cultural norm. It's not written anywhere that, other than in I guess in the like baptism ceremony, but that's a separate choice from being a Sikh. Not all Sikhs decide to like commit fully to all of the rules. Um, yeah, I feel like it's just a cultural thing, honestly. But I get it when you're entering a temple. The idea is that it sort of um, unifies everybody, makes everybody equal,
Okay.
I guess. I've also heard that it gives you a sense of identity as a Sikh. If you wear a turban specifically, not just covering your head, or that, like, I don't know, our practice also got into like more mystical stuff that I'm not sure that Sikhs believe, that had to do with like not letting the sunlight affect your pituitary gland, or your pineal gland. A lot of, yeah, a lot
Okay.
of stuff. Yeah, really interesting.
Really?
Um, it Oh, so I was going to ask you though, how how do you view the chanting of deities in terms of like religion, Hinduism? Like, what's that relationship for you?
Yeah, it's a good question. Like for me, I mean, the way that I've learned about and come into mantra practice was learning that the mantras are way older, are way older than any organized religion, right? So if you think of the Gayatri mantra, it was around long before Hinduism and Buddhism and Jainism, which are typically the ones that use the similar mantras, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, sometimes I do have to question that, right? As a white woman practicing bhakti yoga, right? Is it okay? And I had to come to terms with it. Well, yeah, it is, because it is honestly my spiritual practice. This is really dear to my heart. And I think part of it is coming with the intention of honoring, the intention of being fully committed to the practice, but also that it is really truly in alignment with who I am. It's authentic for me to chant and to connect with the divine in this way. And I, have been connected to um, the goddess for many years. I grew up Catholic, and in university I started taking a lot of women's studies courses and goddess courses and world religion courses and all. I was always interested in this stuff, and that showed me a different way. Um, and then I think what appealed to me once I started, really diving into the bhakti world and the mantra practices was this idea that it's a direct connection to the divine. We don't need an intercessor. We can, through these mantras, connect directly to the divine. And that just appealed to me so much, to the, younger version of me that was told that we need a priest. You don't have any connection with God. You have a connection with the priest has a connection with God, right? And so this appealed to me in a way, and that, that these mantras were meant to be shared for everybody, regardless of what caste you might have been born into, but that they were meant for everyone to have the same opportunity to connect with the divine. So it kind of levels the playing field, right? And so I think for me, those aspects are really appealing, and certainly for me, I felt that with the goddess, particularly, like God is a woman, God is she, it's mama, it's masculine and feminine, but for me it's mama, and she's always there, she's always connected with me, and I feel chanting the mantras to different deities, to different goddesses, is my way of connecting and honoring her. And so I love it. I love learning about the different, like, not only the Hindu deities, but like I like reading about different goddesses from all over the world, and the rising of, the feminine now. It's like, this is it. This is us stepping as women, as anyone who, with our own feminine natures, but stepping into the power of the divine feminine, the power of that aspect that's within any of us. Yeah.
So, and I asked this out of complete curiosity because I realized I went to Bhakti Fest for so many years and didn't really get to know kind of people's perspective on the chanting of mantras from the Bhakti, from the Hindu, well, I guess you were saying they predate Hinduism, but from that tradition. When you chant to Ganesha or to Lakshmi, is this like a sort of like a physical entity that you conceptualize as like a being? Is it like an idea? Is it a what is that for you?
For me, I think it's different for everybody, but for me, I have a tangible experience of them. Like for me, like if I know, I can feel the energy of the being. I can feel, like, when I'm opening Kirtan, I'm chanting to Ganesha, I can feel the lightheartedness. I can feel the energy of Ganesha. And sometimes I can actually feel him dancing around the room. Like I can feel that connection. And certainly for me, like with the goddesses, like if I meditate to them and open myself to hearing their messages and their wisdom, I mean, that's where these songs have come from, is in that way, hearing their voice through my mind, through my being. Like I know it's not me that's saying that, but I can hear, boy, I would have been burned a long time ago if I had said this out loud, or locked up. But yeah, hearing that divine voice or wisdom or guidance, actually is tangible for me. Yeah.
Would you say that it's similar to like an angel or a spirit guide, something
Yeah.
like that?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I would. Yeah, because it is this force that is, 100%, unconditionally loving and in service of us, right? So I think angels would be the same, or a spirit guide would be the same. Like they're there to be in service of us. And I feel like that with the gods and goddesses in Hinduism that, are part of Bhakti yoga, for sure. Yeah.
Do you ever, in your teaching of people or in your chanting locally, do you ever get confronted with like, or not confronted, that's the wrong word, but do you ever have the experience of somebody expressing that they have completely different like worldview, but that they really connected with the chanting?
Yes, all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it really is. I think it's an accessible way for people to connect with their own hearts, and singing community does that anyway, right? And regardless of whether, like, I know there's people that will come that are practicing Christians that will come and they will chant mantras to Ganesha or to Lakshmi or, Saraswati, but it's not that one excludes the other. Like there's room, if you're open to it, there's room for all of it. Like however we connect with the divine is a good thing, whether it's mantra or whether it's through, going to mass on Sunday or through ritual or whatever it is. I mean, this is all about the connection with divine, like, and how we do it is different for each of us, right?
It's so sweet. As you were talking, these birds came through, which is quite unusual, because you were like, can you hear the background noise? I'm like, no, Zoom cuts all that out. I wonder if that's going to make the recording. I bet it does. That's really cool. It was almost like the spirit,
Right there.
the spirit singing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me. It's been such a pleasure getting to know how how your mind works and how you approach songwriting and mantra singing and all that. Do you want to share with people how they can get in touch with you, stay abreast of what you are up to?
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, first of all, for having me. This has been fun. I've really enjoyed talking with you. I forgot we were interviewing. I just kind of was like, oh yeah, we're just
perfect.
So the easiest way for people to find me is at McGarry.ca, and you can sign up for my newsletter if you want to know what's happening. And I send out some beautiful, inspiring stuff every week. And find me on socials at Rachel McGarry Music.
Okay. And all that will be, all that will be in the show notes, clickable. That's the word I'm looking for. So that you can find out what Rachel's doing. I highly encourage you to listen to her newest single, Path to Freedom. And by the time you hear this, maybe hear her entire album, who knows? So yeah, thank you so much, Rachel. And thank y'all for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye. Thanks for tuning into the podcast, y'all. Please like, subscribe, rate, comment, whatever the platform you listen to podcasts on offers you as a way to let its algorithm know that you're enjoying these episodes. That really helps. Also, there's some links in the podcast description notes that allow you to support the podcast in a way that benefits you and us. So please check those out. And if you'd like to stay in touch with me, you can sign up for my mailing list at portersinger.com. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye.